The air in Louisville, Kentucky hung heavy with anticipation on that warm June afternoon in 1971. Cassius Clay, now known to the world as Muhammad Ali, stood at the window of his childhood home, his silhouette framed against the golden sunlight streaming through the glass. His shoulders, once held with unwavering confidence, now seemed to carry an invisible weight. 3 years of his prime fighting years had been stolen from him after he refused the draft during the Vietnam War. Now, at 29 years old, the question on everyone's mind was simple. Could the self-proclaimed greatest reclaim his throne? They think I'm finished, Ali whispered to himself, his reflection staring back at him with eyes that held both defiance and doubt. They think the government took my best years. His fist clenched involuntarily, muscle memory from thousands of hours in the ring. But behind the bravado and the poetry that had made him a household name across America, something deeper lurked, something only his closest confidants could see. Jerry, Ali's childhood friend and now part of his entourage, watched from the doorway. He had known Ali before the fame, before the glory, before the controversy. He knew the man behind the myth. The press conference is in 2 hours, Jerry said quietly. Angelo wants to know if you're ready. Ali turned, his face breaking into that familiar, magnetic smile that had charmed the world. Ready, brother? I was born ready. The champ is here. He shadow-boxed a quick combination, his movements still fluid despite the years of forced inactivity. But Jerry saw what others didn't. The momentary wince as Ali extended his right hand, the slight hesitation before putting weight on his left knee. Small things, invisible to those who didn't know where to look. Muhammad, Jerry said, using Ali's chosen name with the respect it deserved, you don't have to do this. Not yet. Ali's smile faltered for just a moment. What choice do I have? They took my title without beating me. Now I gotta take it back the only way I know how. The journey back to greatness wouldn't be fought just in the ring. It would be fought in the court of public opinion, against a system that had branded him a traitor, and against his own body, which had begun to whisper warnings he wasn't ready to hear. If you've felt something from this story, even something small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. As Ali prepared to face the media vultures, an unexpected visitor arrived at the back door. Howard Bingham, Ali's photographer and closest friend, ushered in an elderly man whose weathered face carried both wisdom and worry. Drew Bundini. Brown, Ali exclaimed, embracing his former assistant trainer and spiritual advisor. I thought you were still with Frazier's camp. Bundini's eyes that had seen the boxing world from its highest peaks to its darkest valleys, locked with Ali's. I go where I'm needed, champ. And right now, that's here. What no one knew was that Bundini carried information that would force Ali to confront a truth he had been fighting harder than any opponent, a truth that would test not just his body, but his very identity as the greatest. The press conference at the Louisville Civic Center buzzed with the electricity that always surrounded Muhammad Ali. Camera flashes exploded like lightning as he entered the room, reporters shouting questions over each other in a cacophony of curiosity and confrontation. Ali was in his element, the center of attention, the eye of a hurricane he had created with his words as much as with his fists. The people's champion has returned, he announced, arms spread wide. Joe Frazier may have the belt, but everyone knows who the real champion is. For 45 minutes, Ali performed, there was no other word for it, with the charisma and verbal dexterity that had made him as much a cultural icon as a sporting legend. He predicted victory, he recited poetry, he taunted his opponents. The Muhammad Ali show was back on air, and ratings were through the roof. But backstage, away from the glare of the cameras and the hungry eyes of the press, a different scene unfolded. Ali collapsed into a chair, exhaustion etched across his face. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for a glass of water. "You overdid it," Angelo Dundee, his longtime trainer, said without accusation. It was simply a fact. "And had to give them what they came for, Angie," Ali replied, his voice now missing the booming projection it had carried minutes earlier. Bundini watched from the corner, his expression unreadable. Finally, he approached, kneeling before Ali with the familiarity of someone who had been in the trenches with him. "We need to talk, champ," he said softly. "Not here. Not with all these ears listening." That evening, in the privacy of Ali's hotel suite, Bundini revealed what he had learned during his time in Joe Frazier's camp. The champion had developed a devastating new left hook, had increased his already formidable stamina, and was fighting with the hunger of a man determined to prove his legitimacy. "He's not the same fighter you knew before, Muhammad," Bundini said gravely. "And," he hesitated, weighing his next words carefully, "neither are you." The room fell silent. Jerry and Angelo exchanged glances, the unspoken truth hanging in the air between them. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ali demanded, rising from his chair with a flash of the old fire. "I'm Muhammad Ali. I'm the greatest of all time." Bundini didn't back down. "I watched you train yesterday. I saw you this morning when you thought no one was looking. Your balance is off. Your reflexes are a half-second slower, and your hands—" He gestured to Ali's hands, which the boxer unconsciously flexed. "They hurt you more than you're telling anyone." "So I'm a little rusty," Ali shot back. 3 years away will do that. I just need time." "Time is exactly what you don't have," Angelo interjected softly. "Frazier won't wait. The world won't wait." Ali turned to the window, staring out at the Louisville skyline, the city that had seen him grow from a bicycle thief to an Olympic gold medalist to the heavyweight champion of the world. "I've never backed down from a fight in my life," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't back down from the U.S. government when they tried to send me to Vietnam. I'm not backing down now." What none of them knew was that the greatest fight Ali would face wasn't against Joe Frazier or any other opponent who could step into the ring. It was against an invisible adversary that had already begun its insidious work within his body, an adversary that would eventually reveal itself in trembling hands and slurred speech, but was already affecting him in ways too subtle for most to notice. 3 weeks of intensive training transformed Ali's body, stripping away the excess weight he'd gained during his forced hiatus from the sport. On the surface, he looked like the old Ali, lean, powerful, imposing. But inside the gym, behind closed doors, his team witnessed moments that sent ripples of concern through their ranks. It happened during a sparring session with Jimmy Ellis, a former sparring partner who had become a contender in his own right during Ali's absence. Ellis, respecting Ali's legacy but hungry to prove himself, caught the former champion with a right cross that Ali should have seen coming from a mile away. The punch rocked Ali, sending him stumbling back against the ropes. For a moment, brief but noticeable, his eyes lost focus. "Enough!" Angelo called out, climbing through the ropes with surprising agility for a man his age. "That's enough for today," Ali protested, insisting he was fine, that he had just been caught off guard. But later that night, alone in his hotel bathroom, he confronted a truth he could no longer ignore. The man in the mirror stared back at him. But something was different. Ali raised his hand, watching as it trembled slightly. Not from fear, never from fear, but from something else. Something he couldn't name or didn't want to. A knock at the door broke his reverie. "Muhammad, you in there?" It was his younger brother, Rahman Ali, who had flown in from Chicago to support him. "Yeah, I'm coming," Ali replied, quickly splashing water on his face. When he opened the door, Rahman studied him with concern. "You okay? You've been in there a while." Ali forced a smile. "Just admiring God's greatest creation," he joked, but the humor didn't quite reach his eyes. Later that night, while Rahman slept in the adjoining room, Ali found himself unable to rest. He slipped out onto the hotel balcony, where he found Bandini already sitting, smoking a cigarette and staring at the stars. "Couldn't sleep either, huh?" Bandini asked, offering Ali a seat beside him. "Too much on my mind," Ali admitted. For a while, they sat in companionable silence, two men who had seen the highest highs and lowest lows together. "And I saw something today," Ali finally said, his voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "In the mirror, something different." Bandini nodded slowly. "I've been seeing it for a while now." "What is it, Bandini? What's happening to me?" Bandini took a long drag from his cigarette before answering. "The body keeps score. Champ. Every punch you take, every round you fight, every morning you push through the pain to train. It all adds up. You saying I'm finished?" There was no anger in the question, just a quiet search for truth. "I'm saying you're changing. We all are. But you've taken more punishment than most men will see in 10 lifetimes. Ali looked down at his hands, the tools of his trade, the weapons that had made him famous and wealthy. They had always obeyed him, had always moved with a speed and precision that amazed even other professional boxers. Now, in the quiet of night, he could admit to himself that they sometimes betrayed him. "I can't show weakness," Ali said finally. "Not now. Not when everyone's waiting for me to fail." Bandini placed a hand on Ali's shoulder. "There's a difference between weakness and wisdom, Muhammad. Sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is recognize when to change how he fights his battles." The next morning, Ali called for a closed training session. Only Angelo, Bandini, Rahman and Jerry were allowed inside. What happened in that gym would remain between them for years to come, but it marked a turning point, not just in Ali's career, but in his understanding of himself. The Madison Square Garden locker room hummed with tension as Ali prepared for his return to professional boxing. Not against Joe Frazier, not yet, but against Jerry Quarry, a tough Irish-American fighter with quick hands and a granite chin. A stepping stone on the path back to the championship. Ali sat alone on a bench, hands wrapped, waiting for the call to walk out. The roar of the crowd outside was already deafening, a mixture of those who loved him and those who had come to see him fall. Angelo approached, kneeling before his fighter. "Remember the plan," he said firmly. "No rope-a-dope, no standing in the pocket trading punches. Use your legs, use your jab, stay outside." It was a dramatic departure from Ali's previous style, the style that had made him famous. Ali had always relied on his supernatural reflexes and speed, often keeping his hands dangerously low, daring opponents to hit him and making them pay when they tried. Now, Angelo was asking him to fight more conventionally, more conservatively. "You asking me not to be Muhammad Ali," Ali said with a sad smile. Angelo shook his head. "I'm asking you to be the Muhammad Ali you are today, not the one from yesterday." When Ali stepped into the ring that night, the crowd witnessed something unexpected. Gone was some of the showboating, the hands-down taunting, the excessive risk-taking. In its place was a more measured, tactical approach, still uniquely Ali, still graceful and powerful, but adapted to the realities of his changing body. Quarry, expecting the Ali of old, found himself frustrated by this new version. Ali's jab kept him at bay. His movement, while not as lightning quick as before, was still effective, and when Quarry did get inside, Ali clinched expertly, negating the younger fighter's advantage. In the 7th round, a perfectly timed right hand opened a cut over Quarry's eye. The ringside doctor stopped the fight, and Ali had his comeback victory. But it was what happened after the fight that would become the stuff of boxing legend. In the press conference, surrounded by reporters hungry for quotes about his next fight, about a showdown with Frazier, about reclaiming the title, Ali did something no one expected. He looked directly into the camera, all traces of his public persona stripped away, and spoke from the heart. "Yeah, everyone expected Muhammad Ali to fight like the old days," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "But when I looked into my own eyes in the mirror, a painful truth came out. I'm not the same man I was 3 years ago. None of us are. We all change. We all evolve." The room fell silent, reporters too stunned by this unexpected vulnerability to interrupt with questions. "They took 3 years from me, but they gave me something too. Time to reflect. Time to grow. The greatest fighter isn't the one who never changes. It's the one who adapts, who evolves, who finds new ways to be great." In that moment, Ali redefined what greatness meant, not just for himself, but for everyone watching. It wasn't about being invincible or unchanging. It was about facing reality, adapting to it, and finding a way to triumph despite it. What Ali couldn't have known then was that this philosophy would serve him well in the years to come, as his body continued to change, as Parkinson's syndrome, likely caused by the thousands of punches he had absorbed throughout his career, began to make itself known. The battle he began that night, learning to adapt rather than deny, would prepare him for the greatest fights of his life outside the ring. In later years, when asked about that night, Rahman Ali would say, "That was when Muhammad truly became the greatest. Not because he was the fastest or the strongest, but because he had the courage to be authentic in a world that wanted him to be something else." And perhaps that's the most important lesson from Muhammad Ali's story. True greatness isn't about never falling or never changing. It's about how you rise, how you adapt, and how you redefine yourself when change is the only option. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hands to reach people like you who feel, who get emotional, who truly live. If this touched you, give back. Comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.